Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm your host, Ontario Johnson, back again for this week's episode of the Tiger Sports Corner, where we'll be giving you some of the latest University of the Pacific athletic news, along with recent news from pro sports as well. As always, I'll begin with a run through of some of the UOP games that have been played in the past few days and finish that off with the game of the week. First up is the women's basketball team who played San Diego on February the 13th right at home at Spanos Center. The Tigers took on a 10-4 USD team and started the game off cold, but the Tigers bench came in really clutch, outscoring USD's bench 33-20, which allowed the starters to rest enough to mount the second half comeback where the Tigers got the USD starters in foul trouble and outscored USD 42-32 to complete the small comeback. The women's basketball team is now 7-10 and are next playing on February 18th at Pepperdine. The same story cannot be told for the men's basketball team, where they fell to LMU on February 13th. Our men's team carried the lead into the fourth quarter by playing extremely good defense the entire game and being able to shoot threes at a better clip compared to their season average. 38% in this game, and the season average is 30%. Unfortunately, however, they fell victim to an even better three-point shooting, especially down the stretch from LMU, where they hit a few threes to erase the 10-point lead the Tigers had built. On a positive note, as long as we keep hitting threes at this consistent rate, we should see more future success, especially against a team like BYU, which UOP is going to be playing on February the 18th. Now, next I'm going to be talking a bit about the... All right. Check. All right, good. Now, next I'm going to talk a bit about the men's and the women's soccer teams. Both teams played very well in very competitive games recently. First with the women's team, they played on February 13th at home against Sacramento State. The Tigers dominated the contest, putting together 13 shots with 7 of them needing to be defended by the goalkeeper. The Tigers were rewarded for their dominant performance with the 72nd minute goal from defender Kelsey Owen. But late in the match, during the 88th minute, Sacramento State tied things up at 1-1. But that is where the score would stay, as no team could score in extra time, giving UOP the first draw of the season. Our team will look to pick up a win against St. Mary's on February 20th. As for the men's soccer team, they faced another tough challenge with a ranked opponent in St. Mary's, making it their second game in a row against a ranked opponent. The low-scoring defensive game ended in a penalty to seal the victory for St. Mary's in the 101st minute. The men's team will be looking forward to picking up a victory in the game against University of San Francisco on February 20th. As for the game of the week for this week, I'm going to have to go with the dominant win for the University of the Pacific's women's tennis team, who were able to pick up the first victory in shutdown fashion. The team was able to win in straight sets, going 7-0, winning all of the doubles matches as well as all of the singles matches. Most notably, sophomore pair Clara Costin and Zoe Everly won their doubles match in straight sets. While the other Pacific doubles matches were competitive, we were able to come out on top. Cosin, Elise Frigo, Maya Lopez were all able to secure 6-1 wins in at least one of their sets. The Pacific tennis team next match will be at home on Friday, February 26th against Fresno State. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention that we'll be covering a bit of Derek Lewis versus Curtis Blades heavyweight matchup between the two of the top 5 contenders for the heavyweight championship belt. From here, I'd like to talk a bit about the NBA and specifically about an injury that occurred that happened to Anthony Davis. He's the power forward for the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Lakers hold the 2 seed in the West. But right now they're chasing the scalding hot Utah Jazz, and Davis has been nursing a sore Achilles, but it appears that he re-aggravated it, and initially many feared that it would have been a ruptured Achilles. Fortunately for Davis, he did not rupture anything, but it appears that it could be a calf strain, or it is a calf strain. Still, something that should be taken rather seriously. Davis is expected to be reevaluated in about 3 weeks, and it's a positive sign, meaning that he should be back before the playoffs. But that poses an interesting question for the Lakers. If the team continues playing at an elite level, should Davis be maybe sat out a little bit longer to make sure that he's ready for another playoff run? This is a question among others that will be answered through time, but for now, Davis he'll be sidelined. The month of February signals the annual Black History Month, where we take the time to celebrate the contributions of Black people to societies around the world and humanity as a whole. Last week, Bryce covered LeBron James. This week, we're going to stay in the realm of basketball but move to a different era. This week, we are taking a chance to highlight the contributions made by the 11-time NBA champion, legendary Celtics center, and civil rights activist Bill Russell. Bill Russell played in the NBA from 1956 to 1969, which made him one of the first African-American athletes in the sport. Russell played and won championships in the face of segregation, overt discrimination, and racism. Russell has been described as an extremely intelligent person and was involved in many significant events during the civil rights movement during the 60s. He actively spoke out against the involvement in the Vietnam War and publicly supported Muhammad Ali's refusal to accept the military draft for the Vietnam War. Bill Russell became the first African American to win an NBA championship as a player. He also became the first African American to become an NBA coach, and beyond that, also the first to win an NBA championship as a coach. But Russell wasn't satisfied with just winning championships. He was focused on civil rights and was well educated on topics that pertain to that. Russell participated in the 1963 Civil Rights March on Washington, and he pushed for the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Act of 1965. Bill Russell's continuous contributions to society and humanity have helped pave the way for multiple generations to live in a more equal society. Even today, at the age of 87, Bill Russell shows support for social justice movements. We at the Tiger Sports Corner just want to say thank you to Bill Russell for his contributions towards society. And now I'd like to go ahead and move it on over to Bryce Kirk, and he'll give you guys the rest of the show. Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Bryce Kirk here, and I hope everyone has had an amazing week. To start off, I'd like to talk about the upcoming NFL Draft that will happen on April 29th. The early picks of the draft so far appear to be quarterback heavy, as names such as Trevor Lawrence of Clemson, Zach Wilson of BYU, and Justin Fields of Ohio State are projected to get grabbed within the top 3 picks. Many of the projected mock drafts have Trevor Lawrence going number 1 to the Jags and Zach Wilson going number 2 to the Jets, though it is possible one of those two could fall lower or Zach Wilson may slip into that number 1 pick slot. Moving on to the NBA, the All-Star Game voting has come to a close, and on top of those fan votes, LeBron James led the Western Conference as well as all of the voting with 4.3 million total votes, second by Steph Curry with 4 million votes. Finishing it with the lead in the votes for the Eastern Conference was Kevin Durant with 4.2 million votes and Giannis with 3.2 million votes. Both the Western and Eastern Conference teams appear to be very strong, though if I were to choose one, I think the Western Conference will have the slight edge over the Eastern Conference. The NBA All-Star Game will be held on March 7th in Atlanta. Now moving on to some Major League Baseball news. Throughout this entire week, all 30 baseball clubs have their pitchers and catchers report for the upcoming spring training. And throughout the next few weeks, all other position players will report as well. This year's MLB season will definitely be different than the others, as the season itself will stick to a 162-game schedule. Many changes will be made, so games will move quicker and keep every player safe. Some other news in the baseball world, 22-year-old Fernando Tatis Jr., the star shortstop for the San Diego Padres, signed one of the biggest contracts ever, and the biggest ever for his age, worth $340 million over the next 14 years. This is the second most money guaranteed to any player in the MLB currently, just behind Mike Trout with $430 million and ahead of his fellow teammate Manny Machado with $300 million.